So if you made it to this video, you're likely considering a move to Oklahoma City. And maybe some of you have been here before, but I know a lot of you really know nothing about OKC and you need more than a short video can tell you. So that's why I'm putting together this video so that it can be the only video that you need to get in the know with OKC. So let's get into it. Hey guys, I'm Jonathan Knight, and on this channel I talk about all things Oklahoma City and all of the surrounding suburbs. Today, I have a lot to share with you, but two quick things. Firstly, I would love for you to stick around and watch the entire video, but for those of you who like to kind of hop around a little bit, I'm leaving some timestamps in the description below, so feel free to just check out the parts that you're interested in, as well as explore the rest of my channel for other OKC topics. And second, if you're thinking of moving to the Oklahoma City area, whether it's in the next few weeks or even few months from now, listen, I would love the opportunity to help make a smooth move right here to OKC. You're gonna find my contact information right down in the description below, so please feel free to shoot me a call, a text, or an email, or even better, click the link below to schedule a one-on-one video call with me so that we can discuss how I can hopefully help you buy that perfect home right here in OKC. Now, speaking of moving to OKC, something you may not know is OKC is big, like 8th largest city in the US by area big. So you're at least gonna wanna have a handle on getting around, which is why I thought we should just hop into the map and get a little cram session of the OKC Metro. So let's hop in. One thing I think is helpful to know first is just kind of a little bit about the highway systems here. So you've got I-35 running north and south down kind of the center of the city. And then across from west to east or east to west, you've got I-40. And then you've got some other pretty helpful highways here to know about, which is this is 44. There's also the turnpike, the Kilpatrick Turnpike, and this goes all the way around kind of the top to the western, sort of the northwest quadrant, and down south along where Piedmont, Yukon, Mustang is. You're going to be driving on that quite a bit if you live in sort of that quadrant of the city. And then let's see, another helpful one to know is this 77 right here. That's also known as I-235. As it gets a little bit closer down to the junction here at I-40, it turns into 35, and as it goes north, it turns into what we call Broadway Extension, and it takes you right into Edmond, Oklahoma. Now, down here on the lower side of the metro area, you'll find I-240, and it runs along that south side of the metro area, kind of cuts in between Moore here and Oklahoma City proper. So that's a general breakdown of kind of the highway system. So let's talk a little bit about kind of just get a little familiar with the city and some of the landmarks. I think that would be helpful. So first things first, I think it's helpful usually just to kind of start out center city. As you might imagine, downtown Oklahoma City is located pretty much right in the center of the city. And we'll get in a little closer here. We'll talk about some of the landmarks that I've visited on this channel. Again, this is I-40 running east and west through downtown. Just south of that is the Oklahoma River, running just south of I-40. And right here you'll see Scissortail Park. That's a park that I both talk about on this channel and I've also visited several times. So you may have seen some of that park while watching this channel. So that's located right there. And just to the north of that is what is the Myriad Botanical Gardens, which is absolutely beautiful. I actually just did a video last week, so you're welcome to check that out, but I visited both the Myriad Botanical Gardens and Scissortail Park. Really a fun time, so check that out when you get a chance. But also down here in the downtown area, one of the oldest entertainment districts here in the city is known as Bricktown. That's kind of right here in that same area. And then you've got the canal that runs along here, which is really cool. I also visited that one in my last video. So that's kind of a rundown of really sort of the more, I guess, highly visited areas in downtown. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the surrounding suburbs. Whoa, 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 slow down, cowboy. We'll get to talking about those suburbs, I promise. But I would like to brag on Oklahoma City really quickly. Did you know that OKC has some pretty amazing parks? Well, let's get packed up because we should definitely check a couple out. Well guys, I hope you didn't think I was gonna do an Oklahoma City Parks video and not come to downtown OKC. Welcome to Scissortail Park. This park is really beautiful and it's one of the newest parks here in all of Oklahoma City, and it is a really gorgeous park, guys. It is over 70 acres of very pretty urban landscape. It's packed with cool amenities like its own little private lake here with paddle boating. It's got a really cool sort of modern playground for the kids, a pavilion to sit and have lunch with your friends, and a ton of places to walk and explore. So let's check it out a little bit. of the cool things about this park, I mentioned, is pretty big. When they opened this park in 2019, I think it was somewhere around 40 acres that were opened on this side of the park. In 2022, they opened the other side, the south side of this park, which is across the highway. But we're gonna head over and check that out. They've got basketball courts over there. They've even got pickleball. So we're gonna check some of that out. You might hear that traffic. It's a little loud, but we're gonna walk across this bridge and let's check it out. Well, a little bit of a bummer. It turns out there's no kids over here for me to ball on, but it's probably time for us to head to the next spot anyway, so we'll see you over there. Martin Park Nature Center. This is one of my absolute favorite places when I'm looking for nature here in Oklahoma City. Definitely one of my favorite parks here. So I'd be remiss not to bring you over here before the end of our day. And I still got another spot after this, but this was definitely on my list of parks that we're gonna have to hit today. So one of the things I love about this park, or really just overall what makes this park so special to me, if you're looking for a park that makes you basically forget that you're really smack in the middle of the city, this is that kind of park. So it's one of those spots that I want to come to anytime I just want to have a nice stroll through nature. There's an absolute ton of trees out here. And pro tip, if you come here on a weekday, you don't have to worry about as many of the crowds as you'll find on the weekends. You kind of have a lot of the spot to yourself. So there are some cool features to this park. There's a playground right near the front. It's a little pond where you'll find some ducks, but really mostly what I'm here for is just the sheer nature. I'm here to fool myself into thinking that I've escaped from the city for only 30 minutes at a time. So if that's the kind of park that you're looking for, I highly recommend you putting Martin Nature Park on your list. Well, as always, unfortunately, we're bound by the parameters of time, so we should probably head on to that last spot on my list today. Let's enjoy the walk out of here. Well, anyone who's been watching my channel for a while is not going to be surprised to find that I'm over here at Lake Hefner as one of the spots on my list here today. You know, if you live here in the northwest side of town and you're not making it out here, you know, in my opinion, you're kind of blowing it. It's absolutely one of the most gorgeous places in the city, in my opinion. But it also is over here on the side of town that I live. And listen, I would argue this has some of the best sunsets you're going to find really anywhere in the city. Right here behind me, you'll see the sun. It's got a little more time before it's going down. You got the lighthouse right here behind me. And then of course, there's the little cove with the sailboats out here. Now this is a no-wake lake, so there's just sailing. You're not gonna get out here on a motorboat. Anyway, there's a ton of really cool different settings out here. It's like 10 miles around this thing. So let's go explore some of those. I'll show you a little bit. So I thought we should come explore this other side of the lake here. It's kind of on the southernmost point of this lake. And as I mentioned, there's like 10 miles of trails that go around this lake. And there's almost a bunch of sort of like mini parks along the way. On this side of the lake is a park called Stars and Stripes, which actually has this very cool skate ramp park, which is super neat. And they also have a golf course around the corner from where I'm at. We don't have enough time to go around the whole thing, but trust me when I say that this lake has a ton of different settings, which has a bunch of really beautiful different areas to kind of hang out beside the lake. This is actually where I often see a lot of people fishing, and sometimes I just come out here to just hang out and, I don't know, look at the water. Call me weird. So, you know what, needless to say, regardless of what you're looking to do, whether you're out to come out and ride your bike or take a walk or, I don't know, fish, or even to bring your skateboard, there's really something for everybody out here, and that's why you find me at Lake Hefner so often. But as I mentioned, one of the things Lake Hefner is the most known for is certainly the sunsets, and we're on the wrong side of the lake for that, so we better get over there because time is ticking. So what did you think about some of my favorite OKC parks? Let me know in the comments below. Now, I did make a full video featuring a few other parks, and I'm gonna leave a link in the description below if you'd like to check that out. But back to the topic at hand, what I've learned helping lots of people move here to OKC is when people say they're moving to Oklahoma City, what they usually mean is one of the suburbs. So naturally, I thought it'd be helpful to dive into some of the most popular suburbs in this next section. First stop on the OKC suburb tour, Yukon. Now, before you ask, no, not the Canadian territory near Alaska. Though, if you stand outside during certain parts of the winter with your eyes closed, you can pretend. So who is Yukon a good fit for? Well, it's said that Yukon is a perfect blend of small town charm mixed with a little bit of suburban convenience. So for those of you who don't want to live in the day-to-day city noise, it could be for you. With only 27,000 residents, Yukon really is kind of perfect for those who want a small town feel. Let's talk about some pros. Yukon is definitely family friendly. This place is like one giant PTA meeting, except without that one parent who takes every minor issue and turns it into a national crisis. I mean, come on, Pam. The kids are gonna be fine now that the pizza's no longer rectangular. I digress. Yukon is booming with families, and one of the reasons is because they really have great schools. And it also helps, my next pro, is that they have affordable housing. So a recurring theme you'll find throughout most of these suburbs is the affordable price of homes. So what I'll try to do is include the median price point for each. Speaking of, the median price point over in Yukon is around $270,000, and depending on where you're moving from, I think most of you would consider that a plus. Especially you California folks, I know you guys are basically selling organs on the black market for homes. Relax, Mom, it's a joke. Another thing I definitely consider a pro is that Yukon is located only about a 20-minute drive to downtown Oklahoma City, which basically just means you can be close enough to the action without living right in it. On that note, one of the cons is the commuting that you may have to take if you live in Yukon, which most of the people who live in Yukon do work in Oklahoma City. So for many of you, that might mean daily commutes. Not that it's the worst because it is so close, but for some people, the drive back and forth adds up to enough time, it's a little frustrating. Another thing some people might consider a con is that it's a little bit quieter in Yukon. But some people consider this a pro. So for someone who thrives on the hustle and bustle of living in the city, Yukon may not be for you, or it may just seem a little too peaceful. And for that reason, some younger adults might find Yukon a little bit boring. Next up, let's talk about Moore, where affordability meets convenience. Moore is kind of like that younger brother who, you know, is a lot of fun, but somehow seems to always be standing awkwardly right behind you. Oh wait, that was me. Anyway, Moore is just to the south of Oklahoma City, kind of has its own vibe. So who is Moore, Oklahoma a good fit for? Well, let's talk about some pros. Moore has a great public school system that's always rated pretty high. So if you have kids and you like to show off those proud parent of an honor student bumper stickers, Moore's got your back. And another pro, continuing the theme of affordable homes, Moore has even more affordable homes in Yukon, coming in at a median price point of $240,000. But unlike Yukon, Moore kind of has a ton to do with a lot of different restaurants and shopping and the legendary Warren movie theater. Trust me, if you're down there, you gotta check it out. It's very retro and super cool. Kind of makes normal movie theaters seem like cheap dollar movie theaters. You remember those? And another pro of Moore is that it's not only close to Oklahoma City, but just to the south, it's also very close to Norman. So within a short drive, you can be in one of either of those two cities, which both have a very different vibe. Now, touching on some quick cons, something worth mentioning is kind of the negative reputation that Moore has regarding tornadoes. Now, there really isn't any evidence to suggest that there's a higher probability of tornadoes in any one part of the OKC metro, but since there have been two really devastating tornadoes that have come through Moore within the last 25 years, it's gotten this reputation of being more tornado prone than other areas. So it's possible that association alone will be enough to scare you off, and it does to some. there is no convincing them otherwise. Much like Yukon, many people drive in and out of OKC for work when living in Moore, and I would argue that drive is probably more difficult in Moore. And overall, there probably is an argument that Moore has more traffic than some of the other suburbs. With around 63,000 residents, that's kind of part of what comes along with living in one of the larger suburbs. Alright, this one is plainly self-serving. Guilty as charged. The Village has been my home for right at 20 years, so I might be a teensy bit biased. So who's the Village a good fit for? Well, everyone from first-time home buyers to single folks, younger couples with no kids or smaller families, or anyone enjoying the perks of living in a great, centrally located small suburb. I mean, if I think it's cool, that's gotta be worth something, right? Right?
Yeah, totally.
So let's dive into the pros of the Village. One is its great location. You're right next to Nichols Hills, so you get the perks of an upscale neighborhood, but without the price tag. It's also not too far from Edmond. For a lot of people, that is definitely a perk. And it's right near a ton of different grocery and shopping options, and one of my favorite places in the city, Lake Hefner. What's also great about the Village is it's got that neighborhood charm. It kind of feels like one big neighborhood, which makes a lot of sense. There's only 10,000 people living here in the Village. Neighbors are always waving at you. There seems to be always somebody walking a dog, at least here on my street. Another pro, when it comes to homes here in the Village, you get a lot of charm for your money here. Most homes have that kind of mid-century feel, which really is real estate speak for cute, but maybe too small for some. Don't get me wrong, there is a good range of home sizes here, but the number of homes that are under 1,500 square feet is a lot of the reason that the median price point sits right at about $225,000. Now, reminder, I am a little biased, but the only con I could really think of is that the homes are a little too small for some people or families. As I mentioned, most homes here are under 1,500 square feet, and there are certainly some homes that are bigger than that. But if having a home that's larger than 3,000 or 4,000 square feet is the goal, the Village may not be the best fit for you. All right, let's head a little bit further south to Norman, home of the University of Oklahoma, and honestly, Norman has a pretty different vibe than the rest of the OKC Metro. So who is Norman a good fit for? Well, college students, and really anyone enjoying the college town vibe, and really any family who enjoys living in an area with the amenities you would find in a larger suburb with nearly 130,000 residents. Now, one of the pros for many people is the college town vibes. With OU right there, the energy in Norman definitely is very young and vibrant. There's always something going on between sports, concerts, or even some festivals. And beyond that, something that families really like about Norman, once again, is that they have great schools. And Norman public schools really are pretty top-notch. But if your kid's not going to go to OU after growing up in Norman, they better have a really good excuse. And another bonus for some families who really like Norman is that there's kind of a wide range of different homes and neighborhoods. Whether you want a more classic home with a big yard for the kids, or a property with a big lot, or something brand new in a growing neighborhood, Norman definitely has kind of all of those. And with a median price point of right around $275,000, that's a price point that's going to sound appealing to many of you watching this. Getting some quick cons about Norman? Well, I always mention game day traffic, and this is something that'll be challenging living in really any college football town. It's definitely not the worst con to have, especially if you love football, but if you don't, those 6 or 7 days a year can seem pretty agonizing. And another con for some is that Norman is just further from OKC than any other suburb. So if you're not down for a 30 to 35 minute commute into downtown OKC, it can feel like a world away. To be honest, some Norman residents don't even care to come to OKC, but Norman is just a little too far for this OKC guy. Moving on to Mustang. And no, you won't find wild horses running through the streets, but Mustang is growing fast and turning into a bit of a family favorite. With around 22,000 residents, Mustang is sort of the smaller sibling to Yukon, and with a smaller vibe. And much like Yukon, Mustang is a good fit for families or those who enjoy a slower paced life, which kind of leads us into the first pro, which is the small town feel. Mustang's vibe is like a Norman Rockwell painting, but with way more minivans. Quiet, safe, and a great place to raise a family. And hopefully you're not getting tired of hearing about this, but another pro is affordable housing. With a little more bang for your buck than Yukon, it comes in slightly lower with a median price point for a home at $265,000. Not unlike other suburbs on this list today, another pro of Mustang is the great public schools, which continues to add to the reasons why it's a good fit for families. And just a couple of quick cons. There's going to be limited entertainment options in Mustang. Mustang is quiet, and maybe for some, too quiet. If your idea of excitement is a wild Friday night, then Mustang may not be it, but that is something people dig about Mustang. And another small con is that it's a little bit of a further drive into downtown Oklahoma City with about 25 to 30 minute drive. So a little further than Yukon, not quite as far as Norman. But if you're working in OKC, definitely something to consider. Now, here in the OKC metro, there are a ton of small town suburbs. So if you're looking for that rural, small town feel that's even smaller than that of Yukon or Mustang, you know, one where you can hear the crickets chirping at night, and I don't mean from some of these terrible jokes that I tell, then maybe some of these smaller town suburbs might be your jam. And really, there's quite a few that have fewer than 15 to 20,000 residents. There's Choctaw, Spencer, Tuttle, Piedmont, there's Purcell, Blanchard, Noble. I mean, really, there's a ton. We could go on and on. But some pros of living in these areas is that you're gonna feel like there's just more area to breathe. Drives between destinations are gonna have more open land and some cow pastures. And there's generally lower price point for homes. But there's also usually fewer homes to choose from. As for cons, well, for most people, there's usually not a whole lot to do. And if you want to go do something, there are longer drives to the big city, which is probably pretty comical for you to think of OKC as the big city if you live in a much larger city, but you get what I'm saying. And next, we talk about the very popular Edmond, the golden child of the OKC suburbs. If these suburbs were in high school, Edmond would certainly be voted most popular, and maybe even most likely to steal your girlfriend. I have no idea what that means. We're gonna go with it. So who is Edmond a good fit for? Well, mostly it's gonna be families with some of the very best schools in the state of Oklahoma, which certainly is the first pro, which is top-notch schools. Because again, Edmond Public Schools are consistently rated some of the very best in the state. So if you've got yourself some future doctors, lawyers, or engineers, Edmond will probably set them up for success. Another pro is that Edmond has a wide range of beautiful neighborhoods. There are a ton of options from classic tree-lined streets to a ton of brand new communities. So there's really something for everyone's taste. Another pro to Edmond is that there's just lots to do. Edmond has a ton of parks, shopping, restaurants, you name it. It's like the choose your own adventure of suburbs. And all of this is why Edmond has around 100,000 residents and growing. Now, one of the cons of Edmond is going to be the higher cost of homes. So while they do have a ton of beautiful neighborhoods, they are a bit pricier. With a median price point of a little over $350,000, you can see why Edmond doesn't make sense for everyone. Another con of Edmond is definitely going to be the traffic. Edmond's growth comes with the growth of traffic. So if you've got yourself some road rage, maybe consider some yoga classes. I could definitely recommend some good ones, so just let me know. All right, I'm gonna need a little feedback. Do you have a favorite suburb just yet? If you do, let me know in the comments. But don't get too sure of yourself, because I am gonna talk about some lesser known suburbs for those of you who stick around to the end. But before we dive into that, did you know that OKC is among the 20 fastest growing cities in the US? Well, you do now, and in this next section, I thought it'd be helpful to talk about some of the reasons that I think make that a reality. So let's take a look. All right, let's go ahead and start things off with a biggie. Cost of living. Oklahoma City consistently ranks as one of the most affordable cities to live in the United States. Housing is significantly cheaper than that of most other major cities, so your money certainly goes further here in OKC. With a median home price of around $260,000 here in OKC compared to the US median of around $425,000, it's really pretty shocking to many. And affordability here is not just about housing. Groceries, utilities, and even entertainment are all much easier on the pocketbook. With an overall cost of living around 15% lower than the national average, it's pretty appealing. So if you're looking to stretch your budget, OKC looks like it might be your wallet's new best friend. Now, let's talk about jobs. Oklahoma City is home to a robust and growing jobs market with opportunities in a wide range of industries like healthcare, aerospace, energy, and technology. The city is also known for its low unemployment rate, which is always a plus if you're in the market for a new job. Many major companies really are flocking here, and so are their workers. So if job stability is high on your list, OKC is looking pretty good in that department. One of the most exciting things in OKC right now is the urban revitalization that's happening really across the city. Projects like Scissortail Park and all the revitalization of the downtown areas really have turned OKC into a vibrant modern city, minus the sky-high prices you're probably used to that come along with that. Whether it's new restaurants, trendy coffee spots, or gorgeous public spaces, OKC really is reinventing itself, and it's turning heads in the process. Some developments to look out for here in the next few years: O'Connor Resort and Indoor Water Park, the Oak Shopping and Entertainment Development, and new continued developments in downtown OKC, including the rumored tallest building in the US, the Legends Tower. For those who love the outdoors, OKC won't disappoint. The city offers a surprising amount of outdoor recreational opportunities, from hiking and biking trails to lakes and parks. Lake Hefner, for example, is perfect for sailing, fishing, or even just catching a beautiful sunset. Whether you're into water sports, picnicking, or even just a walk at the park, OKC's outdoor spaces really have a lot to offer. Some notable parks in the metro are Scissortail Park in downtown OKC, Hafer Park in Edmond, or even Lake Hefner, which is a great place to go for a bike ride or even fly a kite right near the water. All right, as promised, to those of you who stuck around, we're going to talk about some of those lesser known suburbs that nobody really talks about. So let's talk about it. First up, Piedmont. A quiet, close-knit community located just about 20 minutes northwest of Oklahoma City. With a population of around 8,000 people, this suburb offers a great combination of that rural vibe with close proximity to the city. So you could say it really does offer residents the best of both worlds. Piedmont is known for its spacious homes, its quality schools, and plenty of community events that make it really perfect for families, especially those looking for a bit more room without feeling like you have to sacrifice convenience. Now, let's talk about some quick pros of Piedmont. Homes definitely tend to be a little bit larger on larger lots out there. So if you're wanting space for a garden or a workshop, or just simply want to be a little bit further from your neighbors, Piedmont definitely has you covered. Another pro is going to be the strong sense of community. You've got that small town charm and plenty of community events that make it easy to feel at home. And another pro of Piedmont is they've got pretty great schools. The Piedmont School District is definitely a highly rated school here in the Oklahoma City metro. So as you might imagine, that's going to make it a pretty attractive choice for families. Now, let's talk about a couple cons. Piedmont homes are going to be a little more expensive on average than Oklahoma City, with the median price point right around $320,000 versus right around $260,000 in Oklahoma City. But to be fair, this does fall in line with the generally larger homes and larger lots. And another con worth mentioning is that you are going to have somewhat limited amenities, so while you will find some local shops and restaurants, you'll probably want to go into Oklahoma City for a little more options. Now, let's head over to Choctaw, which is a small suburb located just to the east of Oklahoma City. Choctaw is going to be another community that has a pretty good blend of that rural charm, but it's close enough to Oklahoma City that you still get access to suburban amenities. With right around 12,000 people living in Choctaw, it's definitely going to be known more for that rural feel, but also known for its very friendly people. Now, let's hop into a couple pros of Choctaw. It's a little more serene and scenic than a lot of suburbs in OKC. And that tends to be more true on the east side of the Oklahoma City metro, at least the further out that you go. So with lots of green space and natural beauty, Choctaw really is perfect for those who want a more peaceful environment. And as I mentioned before, you do get a little bit of that perfect blend. Located only about 25 minutes from Oklahoma City, it's really not a bad commute, but it's kind of just far enough that you still feel like you have a quieter lifestyle, if that makes sense. And another pro similar to that of Piedmont is that you tend to get homes that are going to be on larger lots, so it tends to be pretty ideal for those who want a little more space for gardening or just outdoor activities. Let's talk about a couple of cons. If you're someone who craves a bustling social scene or, a walkable Starbucks, you probably aren't going to find Choctaw to feel too accommodating. Another con worth mentioning is you are going to find a little bit higher price points to that of Oklahoma City. Actually, much like Piedmont, the median price for a home is right around $320,000, so certainly more expensive than Oklahoma City. But again, the lot sizes allow for a little more room to breathe, and for many, that's worth it. So if you like the idea of being able to see the stars clearly, instead of your neighbor's mulch moon from 15 feet away, well, Choctaw might be a great alternative to Oklahoma City. Located about 40 minutes south of OKC, Purcell is known to its residents as the heart of Oklahoma. And I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like a bold statement, but I'm gonna let it slide. Now, Purcell is a smaller town of around 7,000 residents, and it really is a pretty tight-knit community with a lot of rich history. So let's dig into a couple pros. Once again, it's a lot easier to find homes with a little bit larger lots. However, they're a lot more affordable in Purcell than you'll find in many other suburbs, with a median price point of around $235,000, which is actually less than that of Oklahoma City. Now, obviously, if you want to get a home on a really large lot that's fully updated, that already has a workshop, it's going to be a little more, but it's perfect for those who maybe want to get a larger lot and build a workshop and, have more yard space to have backyard barbecues. Another pro is that Purcell is another one of these suburbs with a small town atmosphere. It really is known for its welcoming, friendly residents. So it's kind of perfect for those looking for that small town traditional lifestyle. And another pro worth mentioning is that even though it is a little bit further out from Oklahoma City than several of these suburbs on this list, it's got very close proximity to Norman. So you still do get some of those perks of having a bigger city nearby, even though you're definitely in a small town. Now, a couple of cons. as I sort of just mentioned, is that it's definitely a little further out from Oklahoma City. If having about a 40-minute drive from downtown Oklahoma City is a deal breaker for you, well, then it's worth knowing it's a little bit further out. But if you're someone who doesn't mind the drive, and many don't, then it may just be the perfect suburb. And yet again, another con worth mentioning is that there's just going to be fewer amenities in the town. So for a good variety of shopping, dining, and entertainment, Norman's probably going to be your best bet. And you may be noticing a trend that tends to come along with some of these lesser known suburbs. Let's talk about Bethany, which is a suburb that sits just to the west of Oklahoma City. It's one of the more centrally located suburbs on this list, so it offers residents easier access to the city, but still kind of maintains that neighborhood feel. And Bethany is a little bit larger than those we've mentioned to this point, with around 20,000 residents. Now, fun fact for those of you who are interested, Bethany is actually the town that I grew up in. So let's talk about some quick pros. Bethany has a more mature, kind of settled vibe, so you've got plenty of tree-lined streets and established neighborhoods. And another pro that I've kind of alluded to is you've got the convenience of the proximity to Oklahoma City. With only about a 15-minute drive into downtown Oklahoma City, it kind of makes commuting a breeze, you know, if you work downtown or just need to go downtown for fun. You're never too far from the action. And it's worth mentioning that while Bethany is a smaller suburb, it's certainly not rural like the others we've mentioned to this point. And another thing I would definitely consider as a pro of Bethany is it's got those kind of charming local spots. You've got those classic small town local shops, cafes, and plenty of parks that really kind of give that small town feel. And downtown Bethany runs right along the old Route 66, so it kind of has that classic American small town vibe. Now, let's discuss a couple of cons. Many of the properties you'll find are going to need some updates, but it also kind of gives you the opportunity to add your own touch. But I'm actually going to throw out a bonus pro of Bethany that it actually has the lowest price homes on this list. And for context, the median home price in Bethany is right around $185,000. But another thing you may consider a con is that there's going to be probably limited growth in Bethany at this point. Being a well-established suburb really just means that new developments are going to be less common. And with that means you're probably going to find less cool spots just popping up like we're seeing all over the rest of the metro. But if you end up living there, you can tell everyone you meet that Jonathan from YouTube told you about it. And I can say with confidence that nobody will know who you're talking about. And I've come to terms with that. Okay, Nichols Hills is where luxury meets convenience. Known for its beautiful tree-lined streets and upscale properties, it really is one of the most affluent areas of the Oklahoma City metro. It's also a very small community considering that it's actually located in the northwest quadrant of the city. And by small, I mean a population of only 4,000 residents. Now let's talk about a couple pros. If you're looking for a luxurious lifestyle, Nichols Hills is the place. The properties really are stunning. It's nothing but very well-maintained homes and lush green yards, you know, the kind that are like putting greens. This is where you're going to find doctors and lawyers living, and even Oklahoma City Thunder players, past and present. Another pro of Nichols Hills is that it's pretty much close to everything. It's pretty centrally located. You're really only minutes away from OKC's best shopping, dining, and entertainment options, and you're only 15 minutes from downtown Oklahoma City. Another pro that you might expect to find in an affluent area like this is the high-end amenities, boutique shopping, and even a very nice golf course in the community. Now, let's talk about a couple of cons. As I'm sure none of you will find surprising, turns out luxury comes at a cost. Homes in Nichols Hills are actually some of the most expensive that you'll find in the metro. And by that I mean the median price point in Nichols Hills is right around $750,000. Now, it doesn't stop there. These homes can go well into the mid 2 millions. Although, I guess I should say I'm well aware that pretty much only buys a 2-bedroom condo and a meal at In-N-Out if you're in LA. And kind of along the same lines, but another con is that there's just less diversity in pricing. And by that I mean there's really no budget-friendly options. Yeah, there's a range from $750,000 upwards of close to $3 million, but you'll be hard-pressed to find really anything under about $500,000. Well, except maybe the outskirts you'll find in the 400s, but that's kind of like the Village Light. Speaking of, the Village is a small but vibrant community located right next to Nichols Hills. And not quite as small as Nichols Hills, but there's a population of just over 9,000 people. So if you're looking for a cozy neighborhood vibe with great access to the rest of the city, the Village is going to be a great choice. And I can say that with confidence because another fun fact, the Village has been my home for the last 20 years. So let's talk about a couple pros. You're only minutes away from shopping, dining, and entertainment that you can find both in Nichols Hills and Oklahoma City. And you're located right near Lake Hefner, and just like Nichols Hills, you're only about 15 minutes from downtown Oklahoma City. Another pro of the village is definitely the neighborhood charm. It's definitely got a classic suburban feel where walking through the neighborhood, you're probably going to chat with some of your neighbors and see plenty of people walking their dogs. And certainly a pro of the village is its charming and affordable homes. From charming bungalows to mid-century homes, they all have really great unique character. And speaking to affordability, the median price point here in the village is right around $225,000. But let's talk about a couple of cons. The first con being that you're going to find mostly older and smaller homes here. So if you're looking for something big and expansive, this probably is just not the spot for you. And the only other con I can really think of is you're not going to find any new home communities here. Being a much more mature community, there's really just nowhere to put new developments. But a bonus pro, let's be neighbors. Just please don't be weird. Newcastle is just right across the Canadian River from Oklahoma City, and even though it's been growing pretty quickly, it's still maintaining some of that small town feel. The town has a population of around 15,000 people, but for context, in 2020, there was only around 11,000 people living in Newcastle. So let's talk about some pros. As I mentioned, it's rapidly growing, so Newcastle has seen a ton of development recently, and this means more options for new homes and amenities. And Newcastle has a good balance of suburban and rural. You do still kind of get that charm of a small town, but you've got shopping centers and restaurants popping up here and there. Another pro I think is worth mentioning is that it's close to both Oklahoma City and Norman. With only a 20 to 25 minute drive to either city, it kind of gives you some versatile options. Now, a couple of quick cons. Rapid growth, as you can imagine, can lead to increasing traffic. So if you've lived in this town for a while, you can imagine that traffic is really growing pretty rapidly. But it's also worth noting that if you're moving from a major city, you probably would think it's silly to think that the traffic is crazy there. It is, after all, relative. And I suppose another con worth mentioning is that there is just ongoing development. Construction may be more prevalent in certain areas with new neighborhoods, but it's kind of all just part of the growth. Well, look at that. We made it through a pretty comprehensive overview of the OKC area. But if you're still looking to learn a little more about OKC, feel free to click on one of the videos you see on screen and I'll see you over there. And otherwise, as always guys, until next time, I certainly hope to see you soon. See ya.